or maybe just a little bit after. So why don't we go ahead and get started? We will call the Johnson City Council work session number 20-20 to order. Cindy, roll call, please.
Councilmember Cope,
Here.
Evans,
Here.
Martin,
Here.
Ready,
Here.
Roca.
Here.
We will read the COVID-19 statement. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with Governor Reynolds' March 19, 2020 proclamation, suspending the regulatory provisions of Iowa Code Section 21.8 or any other statute imposing a requirement to hold a public meeting or hearing, the City of Johnson will conduct meetings electronically with the public allowed to attend per instructions denoted on the meeting's particular agenda. Meeting minutes will continue to be posted per the city's normal course of business. We will move on then to the agenda items, and we only have one agenda item this week. And that is to continue discussion of the 2021 through 2022. Let's do that again. The 2021, 2022 through 2025, 2026 capital improvement plan. And should I turn it over to you, Teresa?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight we're going to talk about general department projects, the water department projects, and sewer department projects. But to begin with, and then we'll get into some other things since I have the whole hour. But of the 4 attachments that I gave you this for this meeting, we have the projects by department for 6 years. And then I have just the council projects that we're going to talk about tonight. That's the one that says 10, 19, 20 council projects by department. And then I have also the draft funding sources for all 6 years, the capital improvement plan. There was a discussion 2 weeks ago about how does it look overall. So I thought we'll have time. I threw that in. And then the 4th attachment that says 10-19-20 planet project detail for all projects is really not all projects, but it's the project detail pages for the 3 areas we're going to talk about tonight. So I've asked the excuse me, department heads that will be affected by the projects we're going to talk about to kind of be ready and be on standby. But Cindy, I think if you open up the 10, 19, 20 council projects, but that one, I hope that's the right one that I want you to open. Maybe. Yes. So here, this just includes the general government projects, and then we have sanitary sewer projects and water projects. Then after we get through tonight, the only other area that you have left to discuss about capital improvement projects is the storm water projects. And I believe David is going to have a stormwater committee meeting to talk about his projects, and then we'll be talking about that with the full council after he has a stormwater project committee. But if you look at the general government projects, for the most part, it's going to be the big expensive equipment that we need for the fire department. And then if there are any building improvements, that would be for either public safety, the library, or city hall. And in this particular case, in general, we kind of threw Ignite Johnston in there. So even though I have the 2021 year in there, we're obviously in that right now. We're working on things, the town center infrastructure, the city hall, and site support building. Those big projects right there, you guys all know what all of those projects are. And the pumper truck, you have already borrowed that money, but we'll have Jim give you an update on where he's at with that. And then he has other pieces of equipment out there in the next 6 years. And then is Eric Melton on the call as well, Cindy?
Yes, he is.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, and then Eric can talk about the ones he has out in the future that have to do with the parking lot and the library roof. Maybe Eric, if you're available first, why don't you go ahead and talk about the 2 projects you're going to have for your facility?
We've had several roof leaks over the past few years. The roof is going to be 20 some years old in this coming year. So we thought it'd be a time to do some regular maintenance on it. Amounts to about $140,000. We've also have a parking lot that's 20 plus years old. So we'd like to do some maintenance on the parking lot itself and the walkways in front of the library.
Eric, for $145,000, that just seems like a lot for just roof repair. What does that buy us? What is it that we're doing to the roof?
It's a flat roof covered with gravel. As a librarian, I can't speak to roof repair in detail, but to remove the gravel from the rubber membrane that protects the building from water damage seems like a lot of work. So the process is removing the gravel, replacing the rubber membrane on top of the existing rubber membrane, and putting the gravel back. That's how I understand it.
Yeah, Mayor, this is John. When I was in Nebraska, we had a similar, for our library, they had a similar rubber membrane roof, and it was 10 years ago, give or take, but it was just over $100,000 back there because the Parks Department had to take care of that for the library. So I can tell you that's probably accurate. Very similar situation as far as what the roof is. Basically, they have to take all that gravel up, peel the rubber roof off, put a new membrane down, and then obviously there's areas where they have some of the exchanges and vents and things like that they'll have to caulk around and that. So I certainly think that's probably pretty accurate.
Yeah. No, I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about the library roof tonight, but I'm just wondering, with the, advancements in construction techniques over the last 20 years, is that the best approach? Do we just replace it with what was there before? Or is there something different, something better that we can be considering? And again, I don't want to belabor it tonight. Flat roofs are always a nightmare.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, as we're going into making that kind of an investment, if there isn't a better way to do it.
Certainly something we can look into. I think the design of the building kind of limits us to what kind of roof can be adaptable to that style of building. But I can definitely report back on alternatives.
Okay. We could maybe sow some seed and put some goats up there or something. Just kidding.
I think people would like that.
Thanks, Eric.
Okay, Chief Clark, would you like to talk about your equipment?
I would. So the fire engine that's in this current year is actually being built now. We're hoping to get it received in around the first of the year, depending on how everything goes. Then we are down, the ladder truck is scheduled for 24-25. The previous chief had listed it as a 20-year replacement. That would put it at year 21 if we receive it in 2025. And it is one of those pieces of equipment that's specialized, and so any specialized equipment like that is very expensive. When I got here, I think it was estimated about 1.2 million. I bumped it up a couple years ago to 1.65 million. Talking with the vendor, getting estimates on what a current one costs and what they estimate for inflation each year at 5%. That puts it at about $1.78 million. So we're hoping that it can come in less than that. And then the year after, which is actually moving it up a little bit, for the rescue pumper, 20 years would put it at 2027, but trying to move it up to the 2025, 2026 year. Those now are estimated to be just over $1 million at that point. And so these are two items that will be discussed at the next fire board meeting. One of the things that, as I'm looking at projections for all the equipment, Grimes has a ladder truck, what we call a straight stick. There is no basket for the personnel to get in or to use for rescue. It's basically a ladder that can be extended out. Those are a little bit cheaper. The estimate would be about 1.5 million in that same time frame. That's only 1 year newer than the Johnson rig. And to me, it just doesn't make sense if we're going to continue this partnership for both cities to keep replacing very, very expensive rigs on this type of a schedule. So I think that's something we need to talk about as we talk about a long-term commitment between both cities, is to how do we save money? I mean, is this something that we can agree to share the costs on, and then delay the purchase of the Grimes rig? As far as the size of our department, there's really no departments in our size that would have like 2 new ladder trucks. I mean, it just doesn't make sense that we would have 2 ladder trucks a year apart. Ambulances, that's a little different. They get run a lot more. They're a lot less expensive. But when it comes to ladder trucks and rescue engines, those are things that I want to have the fire board really dig deep into and talk about long-term commitment. Because the downside would be is if one city replaces one, and then, you know, at a 3-year increment is what we're working on the agreements now. If one city or the other decides, yeah, no, we wanted to separate and do our own thing, and then it would be catch up for one or both cities, which could cost several $1 million to get caught up at that point too. So just things to talk about with the fire board as we move forward, but these are projections, are far enough out. We've got some time to discuss how and who and how it gets funded. So
of those projects listed under general government, the only one you did not see last year is the 1 million that he just talked about, that rescue fire engine, that first one with the asterisk that says asterisk Gov 013. That's the only one that was not in the CIP last year that you didn't see.
And the cost for the ladder truck has been updated. It was 1.65, now it's 1.78. So
Right.
So, Chief, this is Councilman Cope. So right now, and maybe this is maybe a question for Teresa as well. So right now we have these 2 fire trucks in our 5-year budget, and does the way the fire agreement between Johnson and Grimes work today is that if a piece of equipment is purchased by that city pays the entire cost of it. It's not shared between the 2 cities.
The way it's written is any equipment has to be agreed upon by the fire board. So for instance, we bought a self-contained breathing apparatus compressor. We put it in the middle station, and this was just as the agreement was being formed. So they shared the cost of that piece of equipment because it was equally beneficial to both cities. We haven't talked about replacing apparatus at that type of schedule, but I think it's something we definitely need to talk about as we move forward.
Yeah, the current agreement, Jim Sanders, correct me if I'm wrong, but the current agreement, I believe, says each city buys their own equipment, vehicles.
And obviously, and the chief sort of pointed out that the challenge of that is that
Right,
there's pros and cons kind of to that. And so
right.
it would seem to me that we need to at some point have a discussion about kind of our long-term plan for the arrangement between us and Grimes. And is there, if we should, does it make sense to commit to a longer-term relationship with us and Grimes so that we could maybe then avoid having to make some of these capital outlays or share some of the capital outlays? And I don't serve on the fire board, so I don't really know the pros and cons of all those things. And maybe the folks who serve on the fire board are much better versed in these things, but I don't really sort of feel like whatever conversations they're having really ever get back to us at the council for us to sort of then have an ability to make some intelligent decisions about, the ramifications for how long the agreement should go with Grimes, and can we benefit by being able to save some money on capital expense. So I don't know if that's a work session discussion or if it needs to be held in a different format. But I would just encourage us to maybe try to find a way to have a conversation, because it certainly seems this topic of how long of a commitment we're going to make to the fire arrangement between us and Grimes, it continues to come up in topics, and we need to think about that. So.
Yeah,
And Councilman Cope, this is one of the things that J.K. Anderson is actually proposing to do a in-depth study. And so he's working on an RFP. I think, from both cities' standpoint, having a good analysis of the fire department and finding out just, exactly what it does save each city, and then some other ways to optimize savings, and then ultimately, it's just the right thing for both cities, I think, is part of the discussion that we're going to be having with the fire board.
And Jake is the city manager of Grimes, or mayor, or what?
City administrator.
Cindy, can you tell where that noise is coming from? Cindy?
No, I cannot. I'm looking now to see if I can figure it out.
Okay. Let's all make sure that we're not, we've got, I can't, it's hard to even tell what kind of noise it is, but it's pretty distracting. Seems to have stopped.
okay, any more questions about those projects, general projects?
I do. This is Suresh. Fine, Chief. This is a quick question for you. I think you might have already answered it. And if I'm asking it again, just forgive me on that. So the aerial truck that you have currently that's going to go out of commission in 24, 25, what are you planning to do with that existing truck?
Then it'll be sold. Sometimes they take trades, but generally we found that we're better off trying to advertise it and sell it on our own.
Okay, so
Most of the dealers don't want to have to deal with having to sell it themselves, and so.
sure. I'm just curious if that cost will somehow offset some of this cost for this new truck.
Yes, it will.
Okay.
We don't know how much. I mean, unfortunately, they don't hold their value real well. We could probably get, some decent money out of it, but it's not like we're going to get $200,000 or $300,000 out of it, probably, because something that's 20 years old in the fire service, somebody else is just taking on a lot of maintenance and a lot of upkeep. So.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's a good question.
Any others, or we'll move down to, I'll have Cindy scroll down, and Matt, I'll have you talk about sanitary sewer and water.
Yes,
Matt Bryant?
I'm here. Sorry, I was dealing with a after hours call. So, taking a look here at sanitary sewer, we've got the a master plan for our gravity sewer system. We just went through and are wrapping up the low pressure sewer system plan. We had an engineer come in and evaluate that system and give us some ideas on issues that we've encountered with that over the last 10 or 12 years. And they give recommendations on some of the some things that we need to look at, whether it's pump replacement as well as generator maintenance, some of those things. So looking at our overall gravity sewer system, we need to take a look at the gravity system and help plan out future CIP projects with areas of town such as the north of 62nd east of Merle Hay. We know that we don't have sewer in those issues. We do have a plan for that area, but we do have other areas such as north of 70th out along 100th that doesn't have sewer, areas south of 70th, 93rd, 95th, 98th. So that master plan would help us plan for that, give us some costs on those projects, and be able to help identify some of those areas in the system that need to be expanded upon. Moving down the list is Northwest Beaver Drive Fiber. This would be the last phase in our fiber project, switching our SCADA system over to fiber. We've got roughly 6 pump stations up along Beaver Drive and 2 bioxide stations that this would connect and get those transferred off of our cellular connection points now. Some of the issues that we find with cellular is tree growth, windstorms, and a few other things that would help get those more communications a little bit more steady. Moving on is the Northwest Annexation Area Sanitary Sewer. And you can see currently in the budget, we are looking at design on, I believe it's section A to get up to that annexation area. I believe that's just on the backside of the golf course there to provide sanitary sewer, or the beginning of sanitary sewer in that in the annexation area. Moving on into the Bright Drainage Way trunk sanitary sewer. This is in conjunction with one of our storm sewer projects. We did shift the timeline on this, I believe, back a year in order to align with a stormwater project that would go through this area. This is the area that sits out behind the old Rennis greenhouse property to connect some of those properties into sanitary sewer where there isn't any now. And we would still have to, part of that gravity sewer system plan would be the fingers that would come off of that and go down that 93rd, 95th, and 98th streets to provide sewer for those. And then the OM1, which is Orchard Meadows lift station, that was part of that low pressure sewer system, would be upgrading or updating the generator. And we have some control upgrades to get into some new technology that allows for better communications between that pump station and our fiber system or our SCADA system. Any questions on sanitary sewer?
Matt, do we need anything for Ignite?
Well, Ignite is supposed to provide their own sewer. They've looked at that. Anything that they would need for the Ignite project would be provided through Ignite's construction when they build their facility.
Matt, this is Suresh. I have a quick question on the Beaver Drive fiber. It's cost $300,000, and I'm looking at another document up here, that 28-page PDF with details, and one of this thing that says the cost was set at $50,000 and now it's $300,000. Is that something that I'm missing up here?
Yeah, $50,000 was part of the design costs. We combined the $50,000 and the $250,000 for design and construction cost. You'll also see down below in the water where we've got some additional money, because it is a split project between sanitary sewer, picking up the lift stations that pump sanitary sewer waste out of that area, as well as picking up the 2 million gallon storage tank that sits up there at 78th and Beaver Drive. So it's a joint project between those two.
Okay, Very good. Thank you. I just had that question, so I was looking at it. I didn't know how to read it. Thank you.
Great question.
I don't know if this is a Teresa or Matt, but would it be possible to change the OM1 lift station to Orchard Meadows just to help to make it not so cryptic? I think it's hard for us and it's hard for citizens to look at that and understand what that means. And so anytime we can title these things in a way that makes them easier for people to quickly understand, I think that'd be good.
Yeah, I can make that change. It's, sorry, that's how we identify with it here. at
No,
Public.
exactly. I get that. I think we just, for us and for, I think the members of the public who are trying to look at these and try to understand what the city's doing, it's hard for them to understand. And anything we can do to make it easier, I think we should try to do so.
Okay, I think part of it is we are limited on number of characters, so we may just take the generator control upgrade out and just.
Right.
Lift station rehab or upgrade. Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. If there's not any further questions on that, we can move into the water. Northwest Beaver Drive Pump Station rehab would be the pump station that we currently are servicing off of up there at the storage tank at 78th and Beaver Drive. In our water model, it did say that after we built the pump station down here on 66th, to have redundancy in that system in case we have to take the new one down in the future to replace pumps or to perform maintenance on that, is that we would take a look at rehabbing that current system up there at the storage tank. So that would be, and this is a new project that was in the water model, but not in our CIP. That's the double asterisk out in front of it. Moving on is the 16-inch transmission main. We put a part of this in with the Merle Hay and 62nd intersection down to 54th. I'll probably shorten this. This should probably be from 54th down to Beaver Drive. This would be that missing piece between the 16-inch main that comes into town from the Sailor Township water plant, runs down Beaver Drive here, and then turns. It is actually stubbed across Beaver Drive to the west side of Beaver Drive, just on to 66. But this would be that last connection piece between 54th and Beaver Drive. The water tower painting, the next two are both water tower paintings. One's the 100th Street. The other one is the Beaver Drive standpipe at 78th and 100th. We did shift one of these up a year so that we could package these together to hopefully get some cost savings and bid those out together. And then what you'll see below is the other portion or water's portion of that fiber network that runs up Beaver Drive to connect the SCADA system into fiber and versus the cellular. The next item there is an updated comp plan for the water system. We both put together one back in about 2007, 2008. So the current plan that we've got is roughly 10 to 12 years old. And we are nearing all of the short-term and intermediate upgrades on that with the booster station that we're constructing at 66. So we'd like to take a look at that and help plan future CIP projects, see where we have pressure zone issues, where we can provide better redundancy or pressures where we have lower pressures. And maybe how to, depending on what happens in the annexation area, you know, do we have anything going up that way? Do we not? But that updated comp plan would help take a look at that and plan out any future CIP projects in our water system as well. The next item is kind of in flux with the Northwest Annex Area Water Service Extension. And we do have it penciled in there, but it is kind of placed on hold with the litigation that we're currently in. And then the last item there is the Hyperion Point water main anoid retrofit. We currently have some what we call hot soils or highly reactive soils with the ductile iron pipe, water main pipe that we have in that neighborhood. There is a product out there where you can put these anoids in there to help slow that down. We did move that project up just based on the lower cost of that. We did shift that up a year. into next year. So,
Into this year, Matt.
oh, I'm sorry, into this year. If there's
That's
any,
why, excuse me, that's why we put the 3 asterisks before the name of the project, because I really wanted you guys to know that that was not in this year's to begin with, but we've moved it all the way up. But it's a cash project. But I still wanted you to know that we had moved it all the way up.
yes, thank you. Be happy to answer any other questions on the water CIP.
Matt, a quick question, and maybe this just shows my my lack of knowledge in the area, but do our plans for the Northwest Area Water Service need to coincide with the Northwest Area Sanitary Sewer?
Well, with everything that's going on with Xenia,
Right.
they coincide, but we take a look at those each year. And as we get into this, we've decided, I think it was decided that we were moving forward with at least design of the sanitary sewer.
Okay.
But with the water, it's penciled in there, but it's kind of on hold at the moment.
Okay, so the design cost would be which years?
We've actually got the Northwest Water Service Extension design cost in this year.
As we do the sanitary sewer, right?
Correct. Yes.
We just haven't moved forward with any water design, Mayor.
I see, okay. Okay,
We didn't change it in the CIP, but operationally, we aren't doing anything.
okay.
And we haven't, Teresa, correct me if I'm wrong, we haven't borrowed that money, have we?
No.
Yep.
No. It'll be SRF when we do.
Yep.
So the plan then would be to move that out to next year, or does that shift things for the water system planning?
For the water system planning, it's there, we're just not utilizing it. And if it doesn't get utilized, we would shift it out or it goes away, depending on what happens.
Yeah, that's true. Okay,
We wouldn't actually borrow the money until, or draw it off of an SRF loan until we got under design.
okay.
And it is design tied as well to the Xenia lawsuit outcome or Xenia discussions as well?
Yeah, we wouldn't move forward with design until we have
Hmm.
kind of finalized and settled.
So it's not just the sewer, it's also the Xenia discussions. Both those things impact it.
There was some thought of the sanitary sewer would be a little bit separate. We can at least go ahead and get the design on the sewer done without really impacting the discussion on water.
Right, and I think that's appropriate. That's right. I mean, we shouldn't hold up the sewer progress based on as long as we're not spending money on the sewer that we have to spend again, in essence, but because the outcome of the water is unknown. So,
Right.
so as long as we can sort of smartly spend on sewer design, then that makes sense. But maybe so, yeah.
Yeah, we've kind of got a high level concept cost, but we really need to start getting into design and take a look at what path wise, do we need a lift station if we're servicing a portion of that west side of 141 and really kind of get down into some design details. Okay.
Okay, just to make the conversation exciting, and because I'm quite a ways away from Matt Greiner, one of the things that I think the Public Works Committee itself will have to discuss much further, it's fine to stay in the plan, but Matt and I had a pretty detailed discussion, and although I'm not very much of a risk taker, I was a little upset about the water project that he wanted to add this year, the $800,000 for the Northwest Beaver Drive booster pump rehab, because I thought the millions that we're spending putting in a new booster station right there on Beaver Drive was because this one was, you know, old and getting inadequate, but I didn't know we were gonna have to spend another $800,000 to make this one right again. So just so you know, I think sometimes, I don't know if you think that we have internal debates
Teresa,
about.
Teresa, can I just, I'm confused. Teresa, I'm confused by what line item you're talking about, because you talked about
The very-
800,000.
The very first one that says Northwest Beaver Drive Pump Station Rehab. It's 100,000, then 300,000, and then it, total is 400,000. Sorry, I guess
Okay,
I was adding that together. So another $400,000 on the pump station that I thought was supposed to be kind of like just the backup or whatever. So when it comes time for those kind of projects, Matt, you know, it's Matt's department and he's the one that has to feel comfortable with those things, but please know that we have some pretty exciting discussions about them. Matt, is that the word I want to say?
Yeah, and we'll continue to take a look at this. And I know that we've got some numbers coming from an engineer to solidify this. It may go up or down based on those numbers. We had them in there last week, taking a look at the pumps, gathering some information based off of the actual station itself. So we'll take a look at those numbers once we get them in and make some final adjustments on this. So I'm hoping that number goes down and that we can just upgrade some pumps and maybe some control panels. But yeah,
I mean, I can't even, off the top of my head, all of a sudden, I can't even remember how much we've spent on laying all new water pipe up along Beaver, putting in that big new building. I don't know if you guys have noticed that down there across from the gas field and the soccer fields, where we put in a big new booster station building, and we had to buy property. You know, it's been quite expensive, and I didn't think we'd spend all that money and then still have to spend more, I guess. And so I was a little taken aback. So those are projects that will come back to Public Works, obviously, as it gets closer, but I don't know. I hope you know that we as staff really kick around these projects and do our best to make sure they're absolutely necessary evil, so to speak. But if you don't have any more questions for those, I'd like Cindy to open up the report that talked about funding. Cindy, the one that says the draft funding source 6-year plan. So although you haven't talked about stormwater projects, this is included in here. This report, when it says CIP Capital Improvement Fund, well, first of all, I see some that are wrong right there, now that I just say that to you. The fire engine is not supposed to be in there, or the aerial truck, or the library roof. So I'll have to fix some of those. Basically, the CI fund that says CI Capital Improvement Funds, that's really the Park Department Capital Improvement Fund 318. So ignoring the aerial truck and the roof, the library roof, and some of those ones that got added this year, those should be under general GO bond, which I'll fix that. This is why we're in work session, I guess. This would be projects that are in the 318 fund, which you fund by putting in hotel motel tax dollars and you transfer general obligation property tax dollars every year. The city council makes an automatic transfer. And then the park board manages that Fund 318. And they decide what projects they're going to pay for out of I call 318. That's what all these projects are. When he talks about Johnston Commons, Dewey Park, Crosshaven, Adventure Ridge, Dog Park, these projects, the park board has said, we'll use that money that the council gives us or hotel motel tax has given us. So that's what that is. The next
So
one,
Teresa, are these paid with cash in essence? You're not borrowing money?
I'm
to-
not borrowing money.
Right, so there's no debt related to any project that's in the capital improvement fund.
Correct.
Okay,
There shouldn't be, but like I said, there's some in there by mistake.
right. Once you
Okay.
get that fixed, but
Yeah.
anything in the capital improvement fund is cash, paid with cash,
Right,
so it's not impacting the amount of debt we borrow or debt.
Correct,
Okay,
correct.
And Teresa, may I add one thing that this is a fund that has a balance, so it carries over from year to year. So as you look at these numbers, they vary. So I think the combination of the hotel motel tax as well as the general obligation is $160,000. So that's why these numbers don't add up, but we do have a fund balance that offsets some of those costs in there.
Yeah, right. Right. The next one I think is just gonna be if we just have a land sale revenue, which we've never had. I don't know where that one came from too. That's new. The RF State Revolving Loan Fund. So these are debt. This is debt we've issued, but it's paid for typically by water or sewer revenue. Occasionally we have, or storm sewer, excuse me. So water, sewer, or storm sewer. We did do some SRF loans, but they were general fund. But I think they're hopefully listed under general. If you'd keep scrolling down, Cindy, for me. I don't think I can do that. Can I, Cindy, from here? I don't think I can move it. Okay, so then here's the big section, the T with the asterisks is the general obligation bonds that we're going to pay for taxes. So these are the projects that we issue that are general obligation bonds that we're going to pay for from tax money. So if you scroll down a little bit further, Cindy. Okay, stop right there. So if you remember, and in my staff report, I talk about the fact that we're going to be paying off debt around 6.5 million, 7.2 million, 7 million, 7 million, 7.1. And you look across that total general obligation tax number, and we're at 7.4, 1.6, 2.5, 4.7, 500,000 plus some that I've got to correct. We've done a pretty good job, I think, in the coming year here, other than as long as I need to check with Matt to make sure. I don't know if he counts the TIF number in what we pay off because it doesn't affect the debt levy. So I want to make sure that he and I are on the same page when I tell you that number. But if you go to the next section and scroll down, all of those projects, then even if you add them together, other than in year 23-24, you see the big project that is 100th Street reconstruction. That's a $10 million project. But we have it in TIF. Even if we added those numbers to that general obligation number up above, we've done really well keeping within that number that Matt has wanted us to do for the next 5 years. I'm happy about that. I think the council should be happy about that as well. And keep scrolling down, Cindy. The next ones then are what we consider coming out of cash. or possibly cash, meaning either general fund cash or utility cash. So if you look in the project number, you can see where it's obviously government is just going to be regular cash balance or something like that. Sanitary sewer revenue, storm revenue, water revenue. Keep going down. And so then those are the projects that we have with cash. And then here's the overall grand total for the next 5 years. Once we get over this, Ignite and City Hall Town Center projects in these 2 years, these were just really big years. Things look much more manageable. So the other reports that I gave you was the full report by all departments with all their projects again, and my totals surely matched the funding totals. So questions, comments, concerns?
So Teresa, just to clarify, we're looking at kind of this cover of the board doc where it has the 6.5 million for 2021, 7.294 million for 22. That's sort of the number that Matt Stoffel has identified as sort of a max that we should be spending on probably geo projects each year. Okay.
Right.
And generally you feel like we're in pretty good shape on that.
Yes, I do.
Okay, cool.
Anything else, Teresa?
That's all I had, Mayor.
Okay. Well, if there aren't any questions for Teresa, 11 minutes before the city council meeting, Jim, are there things that we can cover now?
Yes, there's several things that we can go ahead and cover right now, so I will start doing that. First of all, I sent to the council late last week the writ of certiorari action that was filed on that dog case, that so-called dangerous dog case. So I forwarded that to the council at the end of last week because you guys were named in that action. We are going to have the attorney that's representing us, Ben Roach, is going to attend our next city council meeting, and we'll get an update on where we are with all the litigation related to that dangerous dog case. So we'll get updated at our next meeting on those issues. Anybody have a question on that? Okay. Just wanted to recognize a week ago, Monday, we had a sort of a retirement party for the old City Hall. I wanted to thank Janet and Janet for her work in getting the promotion out for that. And then David Warding had quite a involvement in just getting that building ready for us to have that event. So I appreciate both of their efforts there. But it was a nice event. We had some former mayor and some former city council members and some more former library board members and others that attended. So I thought it was very nice recognition of a piece of our history, and we were able to take some pictures and video that we'll be able to keep, and they'll be able to see that in the future, I guess, as we move on to our next chapter with our new city hall. But wanted to recognize our staff that were very involved in getting that ready to go. But it ended up being a very nice ceremony. Just a reminder that Wednesday night we have our strategic planning session, and that'll begin at 4 o'clock, and that'll be held via Zoom. I did today send a document that showed all the comments that we received from mayor, council member, and staff members related to our progress, or what we saw as being some of our accomplishments over the last couple of years. And that document ended up being about 23 pages. So a lot of accomplishments that were discussed in that, and we should be very proud of what we've been able to accomplish. And I'm looking forward to having the conversation Wednesday, plus in a few weeks, we'll have a meeting on a Thursday evening. I believe it's November 12th to put together our plan for the next couple of years. So anyway, you do have a document to review before Wednesday night. Part of what's going to happen Wednesday night is we'll do sort of a general discussion and review some of the comments that were made. And then we are going to break down into smaller groups consisting of two council member or the mayor, two in each group. We'll have 2 breakout sessions, and each of them have 3 different subject areas. And so we've been, Cindy and I worked today in trying to figure out who's going to represent the council and mayor on those groups, and then what staff members will be a part of that process. So that'll really get into the nuts and bolts discussion of where we want to go with our new city strategic plans. So anyway, it should be a good session on Wednesday night and lay the groundwork for the decisions that we'll eventually make at our meeting later on in November. Just wanted to recognize Jedco had their bus tour a couple of weeks ago, and it was a nice event. It was a virtual tour. Basically, what happened is they did some interviews and took video footage of what's happening in Grimes and what's happening in Johnston. The mayor of each community talked about what was going on and welcomed the group and talked about what was going on in their communities, and they showed the videos. So it was a nice event, not nearly as well as attended as the past events, but due to COVID and the fact that we really didn't take a bus tour, it still was a very nice event, and Phil and his staff did a great job in putting that together. And it's just amazing, again, looking around at all the progress we've made and opportunities we have, as well as the city of Grimes. There's a lot of potential out here in both communities for economic growth. And so it was great to be involved in that. I know that Adam was very involved in getting that coordinated, and Janet was, I think, involved with some of the information that we shared with them as well. So appreciate everybody's efforts there. Phil just looks like you messaged us. If you go to growjohnston.com, you'll be able to see the video that they put together. So if you have a chance, you might want to go out there and take a look at that. I did get Friday, got a note from Des Moines Waterworks, and they have set their rates, the rate increase that they're going to have for 2021. And the rate increase for Johnston is going to be 3%. So it'll cost us 3% to purchase the water that we use for our community. And that is I guess, a decent rate. That some of the other rates that some of the other communities are proposed to pay are up to 15%. So it's a good rate for us compared to what some of the other communities will need to pay, or the increases that they're going to experience. This is a proposal that Des Moines Waterworks will be making to their board of directors, and they have their meeting later on in October as far as what they're going to set the rates. But just want to let the council know, and we will include that number in our budget projections so we can prepare our preliminary budget for next year. Another exciting announcement, I guess, and this goes to some of the efforts we do as a metro in making things better for our community on a regional basis. Last week, I got a note from the Wastewater Reclamation Authority, and we've been working, I happen to be on their board, but we've been working on a project for a number of years to capture the gases that come out of the processing of the waste that goes to the Wastewater Reclamation Authority, capturing those gases, treating the gases and pumping them back into the Mid-American pipeline so that can be used as natural gas and help with furnaces and other uses that they use natural gas for. And after many years of work and many hours of working on this with a lot of people, a lot of engineering folks from the WRA and attorneys and the board and everybody involved. They started pumping gas into the Mid-American Energy gas mains last week. And so what that will do, one of the advantages that's going to have for all the communities that are members of WRA is that we can sell that gas. And so essentially, whatever WRA sells the gas or how much gas they sell, so much of that money will come off of the cost that we have to pay to treat our sanitary sewer every year. So there'll be a definite benefit to the communities. Now that we're pumping the gas, we'll get an idea of how much volume there's going to be, and I will share with the council when we get an update on how much savings that would be, and plus, probably more importantly, how much we're able to provide for people to be able to use for their natural gas and heating their homes and those kinds of things. Prior to this point in time, they used to just flare that gas off, and that's how they've been doing it for years. And now we're taking that gas and making it usable. And they do a similar thing at the Metro Waste Authority as well. So I think it's great that we're capturing those byproducts of those efforts and now putting them to good use. And I think that's all I have for, I did, let's see. Yeah, the only other thing, and we've talked about this before, but we have had, and Janet's worked on putting the guidance out for Beggars Night. And so I think at this point in time, I haven't heard of any metro community that is not going to have Beggars Night, but the important thing is making sure that people that participate are doing it safely. And so there's been guidance that has been put out, and we'll continue to put that out. Our Beggars Night is the 30th of October from 6 to 8, and that's consistent with what most communities have. Usually communities are either on the 30th or 31st. Ours happens to be on the 30th, but we have put guidance out and following CDC guidelines and Department of Health guidelines to make sure that people that want to participate do participate in a safe manner. And so from what I understand, the trick or treat will happen as, unless anything, we get more issues related to COVID, but it's going to happen to the people that want to participate. Obviously, it's an individual's choice and family choice whether they want to receive and or give candy, but there is some good guidance out there to make sure that it is safe if people want to participate this year. And I think that's all I have for this evening.
Okay. Well, that takes us up to just 1 minute before the city council meeting. So why don't we adjourn the work session and start dialing in for the regular council meeting. Thanks all.
Thank you.